Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of OM Plus, a club for life. And I'm really excited about our guest this evening. We welcome Mr. Sibs Ncamani. Sibs, I don't know if I should still call you Sibs or Mr. Ncamani, and I've graduated over the many years since I've last met you. But we're really excited to have you as our guest this evening. And as everyone knows, we have these sessions at least once a month. And really the purpose is to unpack the concept of mentoring, to truly understand the journey that people walk, either as mentees and as mentors, and as really part of us understanding and transitioning towards leveraging this amazing network that we have called OM Plus. We've got a feature called the mentoring feature that we've incorporated as part of the OM Plus platform online. And it's really then to facilitate the mentoring relationships between someone that wants to be a mentor and also someone that wants to be menteed. And on that very high note, Sibs, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sure, that's quite a start. Thank you so much, Teddy. I'm privileged and I'm honored to be part of this. I'm excited and I look forward to sharing some of my own experiences with everybody. I can be honest with you, I'm a bit nervous. I never thought I would do something of this nature.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, let's see if we can calm your nerves. But just to fire away, and hopefully this will calm your nerves. Actually, I always like to start off by asking our guests, what is the funniest memory or fondest memory you have in your time at Balgowan? You can pick one, you can pick many, totally up to you.
Okay. I've been here for quite some time. My memory will span quite far backwards. I think there are lots of stories. Michaelhouse boys usually say every day there's a new story, and it's very true. This place is buzzing with lots of energy, and there is always something to talk about on a daily basis. Funniest memories? I can remember. The story about, I think it was Lutuli, in fact, in your year. Remember how Lutuli likes to gym. And he went for a 2:00 a.m. session because he thought it was at 5 o'clock in the morning. He got his times completely wrong. I think I remember that vividly. I can remember also the era where there was this huge, it must have been after your time, there was this huge Coke bottle, a plastic bottle, that's used for advertising. It became somewhat a raiding trophy in the school. So it was migrating between houses depending on who could hold on to it the longest. And I think West outdid itself at some stage because they decided to tie the bottle on Michael Rhodes' legs. So you can imagine the kegs had to go and find this bottle, and only to be met by Michael Rhodes, who was a giant, a man himself. Those are some of the things that I can recall vividly as fondest memories. But Teddy, there are lots of stories that I can share with you guys. On a personal note, I think, I think if I look back at what I've invested with regards to time in this institution, given where I come from, I think for me, the fondest memory is having my son coming into Michaelhouse. He is in D block now. He is in Baines. And I never, ever thought that's something like that. He's in Baines.
Why did you put him through such
he's having a time of his life. And I spent a lot of time in Baines, and I think he became quite acquainted to the house, and the Baines grew in him, and he decided it was his choice, and he decided no, Baines would be a good place for him. I think as a family, really, I am honored. We are honored to have our boy attending a school where I've gained so much. I've invested a lot of my time. I'm well vested into this school. I believe in its ethos, and for me, I could not have asked for anything more. There's no better gift that Michaelhouse can give me than to educate my child.
Yeah, Sibs, we've a lot of the old boys on this call know you very well, and for me, I remember I actually met you when I was in D Block 20 years ago, 2001. I think that was your first year, and you were my under 15 rugby coach. You were my geography teacher.
I remember that.
We've known you in the capacity in many different kinds of relationships, mainly as a teacher, as a coach, and as a friend. But help us understand and enlighten us as to who you are. You mentioned where you've come from, and what was your time like before 2001? Where did you grow up? What was your origin, and how did you actually end up at Michaelhouse to begin with?
Yeah, it's quite it's quite a story. It's a miracle, in fact. When I look back and reflect on it, well, I come from Transkei. If you know where the Wild Coast Sun is, so I'm from that tribal land where the Wild Coast Sun is situated. I went to school in my village. I don't think I was the brightest of the kids. I just tried my hardest. And as you would know, you are always rewarded for your efforts. For some reason, I was always near the top end of the class. And I think some people took notice of that. But I grew up typically like any other boy who grows up in a village. You herd cattle, your sheep, your goats. That's what you do. I was very lucky in a sense that my mother really emphasized the importance of education. She herself had gone to boarding schools in the Transkei region. So she understood the importance of education, and she really emphasized that to myself and my two sisters, that education is everything, is the key to our future. So I would say we were lucky in that sense, because a lot of my peers didn't really graduate beyond grade 7. Those who went beyond grade 7 hardly made it to matric. So I was very lucky that I took school seriously. And from there, I was very fortunate, as I said, by virtue of taking school a little bit more serious than your peers. I'd on one Saturday afternoon, I met I'm going to call him my uncle because he's from our family, but the extended side of the family. He had been employed at KZN as a teacher, and he came and sold this idea to me that if I wanted to be a teacher. And initially, the whole idea wasn't too appetizing. However, I knew the following year that I had no chance of being at varsity. So I kind of tagged along and I said, tell me more about this. And then he said all the independent schools in KwaZulu-Natal at that time had started this program where they were looking for young people who were keen to join in education. And I put my name down and I was interviewed. At that time, I must say, he was working at KZN, so he picked me up, and I basically was sponsored by KZN College, but I didn't spend a lot of time at KZN. For some reason, it's amazing how nature works. So I ended up at Michaelhouse, and if I can just take a step back, I'd gone to a school in the rural areas. I thought that is all what schools look like until I arrived at these schools. I can remember driving into Michaelhouse, and I asked the driver at the time who brought me into the school, and I said, is this high school or university? Because my own reflection in my own world was our 2 blocks of classrooms and a soccer field. To come here and you see, first of all, countless number of fields, never mind the buildings, was mind-blowing. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I got going. I arrived at Michaelhouse, and in 2001, as you remember,
Yeah.
yeah, I think just one thing at a time just kind of fell into place. Each piece fell into place, and finished my degree. Went overseas for a year in England, and at the end of 2004, because that was your metric year, I can remember
Yeah.
talking to Mr.
Yeah.
Crawford, and I said, "It is
Yeah.
way too cold in England. I cannot continue staying here. Can I please be considered for a job at Michaelhouse as a full-time tutor?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
John Crawford was very kind. He put in a good word to Guy
Yeah.
Pearson, who was the rector at the time. And
Yeah.
I arrived
Yeah.
here in January in 2005. I haven't left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty
No,
much
that's
the short and the long of it between my high school and starting at Michaelhouse.
yeah. No, that's brilliant, and
So
because
then what
so many
happened,
of
if I can
us.
just again just add a little bit more to this. So when I first started in 2005, in fact, I can even go back to 201 when I arrived there. You must remember, one is coming from an environment where you had hardly put 2 sentences of English together, and you walk into this environment, suddenly you must speak, dream, live in English. That was quite a daunting
Yeah.
thought and experience. However, as they say, success favors the brave. I just said to myself,
Yeah.
just get stuck in, see what you get out of it.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yes.
And did you have anyone sort of guide you in some sort of mentorship way? And I mean, I imagine coming into the school 2001, totally different environment, young, ambitious, and overwhelmed
Yeah.
potentially with teachers with PhDs and masters. And how did you fit in?
Oof. The school was very different back then. Wherever you go, you're always sort of attracted towards people that speak like you, that smell
Yeah.
like you, that think like you. So at the time, it was quite difficult, I must say. I don't think even today, when I look back to this, if it was not for Mr. Kuluse, who is a legend in his own right in this institution,
Yeah.
if it was not for him, I think my experience there would have been very different. So Mr. Kuluse played a massive role in mentoring me. He showed me the ropes. He showed me how things are done here, and I really learned a great deal from him. But there were also other people along the way. I mean, as I mentioned earlier on, Mr. Crawford was amazing for me.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
Guy Pearson was a huge inspiration of mine. I never met a man who can remember so many names, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always said, if I can aspire to something, is to at least remember half of the names of people that were under my sphere of influence, because Guy Pearson
Yeah.
would put you in shame. Yes.
Mm.
So I
I
would say,
remember
yeah,
guys
Kuluse
started.
Kuluse
Yeah.
played Kuluse played a
Mm.
massive role, and most boys probably remember him as SGK, as he was fondly known around here. And yeah, so he played a massive role in 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 just showing me the ropes and how things are done here.
I do remember Guy Pearson's first assembly. His promise was he's going to remember every single boy's name by June. He said this in January, and he knew random D blockers like myself and C blockers like myself at the time, and every single boy's
Mm,
name. And so he was a great guy. I really
mm,
enjoyed him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
you mentioned the transitions and how Michaelhouse was different back then relative to how it's like today. And Murray actually has a question, Murray Witherspoon. He says, you've been at house for a long time. Things always change with time, which is natural. What hasn't changed?
Yeah. At Michaelhouse, then on a lighter note, the red bricks are still here. They have been changed. You know what? I think behind the buildings, there are people, and those people carry the Michaelhouse story, because the Michaelhouse story is a great story. It gets passed down the line, and the same story has remained in this school. That story is about producing significant men of understanding, thought, and culture, as it were. So the school has not lost that ethos. We continue, and we always strive to make sure that we produce boys after 5 years of their time here, when they got into the world and the society at large, they go out as men of significance. That hasn't changed in my view. We continue to do that. I could be in Cape Town, you could be in Johannesburg or wherever, and you can see a Michaelhouse boy across the road. And for me, I think that is it's always wonderful to see, because of their mannerism, their conduct, and just their whole well-being. I think by and large, we continue to get that right. And there are many other things that the school has retained over time. You look at any old boy, when you talk about a cop shop, everybody knows what a cop shop is. When you talk about a CAC, everyone knows what a CAC is, because that is where it all starts. Just like any other family or society, you always have your youngsters. When the babies are born, there's a huge celebration because of the anticipation in terms of what they're going to bring in the near future. And when we welcome the new boys at Michaelhouse, it's exactly the same way as it was for you in 2005, in 2001, and it's a huge celebration. We are excited to welcome the new boys, because the Michaelhouse story must continue.
Yeah. I want to maybe take us a step back with the relationship that you had with Mr. Koluse, John Crawford, and Rector Pearson. Was it intentional that you had this mentoring relationship with them? Was it by chance? And then how did you maintain it through the years?
That's a very, very good question. Was it intentional? I don't know. I don't think it was intentional. However, it just worked out naturally. Those are just the people that I looked up to at the time, and they, I mean, everybody knows Mr. Crawford. He's as calm as anything, and I think I learned a lot from that. And I like the flamboyance of Mr. Koluse. He had good energy, but he was always very positive about anything that happened around here. And I think Mr. Pearson showed me that leading an organization like this, you can just be yourself. You do not have to. You do not have to try too hard. I'd never, not at any stage, I thought he was trying too hard. He was just himself. I thought he led the organization with serious level of success. He was always amazing. And as I said, he always took the interest of the boys to heart. And I thought those are the qualities that one need to be a teacher, not just a teacher here, but to be a successful teacher. And I've always based my whole career around building up relationships.
And then if we had to flip the switch, because I find it fascinating, you had these three individuals and three very different individuals, yet the commonality around the mentoring kind of relationship, and they had very different deliverables, and you had very different things to learn from each of them. And if we flip the switch,
Yeah.
20 years later to you
Yeah.
today, what kind of mentoring role have you played at Michaelhouse, whether it's to other teachers or to the boys themselves, or all boys?
Mm. Yeah, I think by virtue of being a teacher, you that role you automatically anyway do. The most important thing is that as an person of influence, you got to think long and hard about your own conduct. You got to think long and hard about how you come across the boys in the case of our school. And I think I've always thought being an example and having the and conducting myself in an exemplary manner was always important. And yeah, have I changed anything about how I mentor? No, I don't think I've changed a lot. When Because I spent so much time with Mr. Kuluse, when he left Michaelhouse, it almost became like an automatic thing that now people that were arriving at Michaelhouse suddenly would look up to me, which was a scary thought in the first place because I always saw myself as a youngster and I never thought I should be mentoring anybody. But naturally,
you still
it
look
happened.
young,
And
which is good.
She's too kind. I'm a dollar now.
I think it's the
So
hairstyle. The hairstyle.
so I think we talk about passing down the baton to the next group of people. So I've always felt that I have a responsibility when the new staff comes at Michaelhouse is just to find a quiet time, have a cup of coffee, and just tell them how this great school of ours work. Yes, people do come with exciting and energetic ideas, and that's why we employ them here. However, there are certain things that you would want to pass down to the new staff members, which makes the school unique. And I happily undertake that role without hesitating or whatsoever. So I'm always keen to help the new staff who are arriving here and show them how things are done. And yeah, as I said, the key thing is just to make sure that we maintain the ethos of the school. And those staff members who've been here long enough, I think we get, by design or default, we have that role to play. As for the boys, I've always said they are the easiest people to deal with. Boys, they relate to people who care for them, and really, the whole pastoral care of our school is the key ingredient of Michaelhouse. Boys always thrive in an environment where they feel like they can be themselves. Hence, in my house mastering now, I always say to people, there's a saying in Zulu, "Sawubona." Sawubona is not just about greeting. Sawubona means so much more because the literal meaning of it is "I see you." And when the boys see that, when the boys see that they're being noticed, like you felt when Mr. Pearson called you by your name as a random D blocker, you want to jump buildings in excitement and do even better. And so that's my essence of mentoring, really, towards schoolboys.
On that note, you were always one of the most liked teachers. Not that the other teachers were disliked, but you are one of the most liked teachers, and all the boys can relate to you. Maybe it's also because you still look young. But Kuhle Kumalo has a question that, sir, as a
Kuhle
teacher,
Kumalo, oh my goodness. Yes.
How do you maintain the friendship you have with the pupils, but also maintain that teacher-pupil relationship?
Ah, man, I remember that boy. In fact, I've got some memory of him playing under 15 rugby or under 14 rugby. How do you maintain that? I think there is a level of professionalism that one needs to display. Um, and really, the boys, there's a difference between being friendly and being a friend. And that is where I drew the line. You know, boys did not want me to be their friend. They wanted me to be friendly with them. You know, so that is that is where basically one draws the line. When boys talk about their girlfriends as a teacher, that is not your business. You know, that is for them. You know, so you don't need to start engaging on matters like that because then you're gonna get your lines all mixed up. You know, so you've got to maintain that level of friendship, but professionalism is very very important. You know, and I think I always took liking and interest in the development of the boys to a certain point. You know, anything that was personal, I've always said it's none of my business. I better stop. You know, I don't cross the line. So it's important that we as teachers, we know where to draw the line. And I think I was quite lucky. In most cases, I knew where that line was, and I did not really took boys for granted. We can talk about anything. Banter is good at Michaelhouse. Good, by the way, the banter that you left behind, it has continued. This institution is built around that. And it's always nice to have a good banter relationship with boys, but there's always a line. And neither people should cross that line.
So, but
I hope I answered that correctly.
No, that was a perfect answer.
Oh, butter.
But Devang Mapetla's got a question, and he recognizes the different roles that you've played over the years. So from tutor back in 2001, right through to teacher, rugby coach, soccer coach, athletics coach, housemaster, and then coming into now your new role.
Yeah.
What are the things that you've had to unlearn and relearn, just given that period and the various changes, but at the same time, the things that have remained consistent?
Sure. Oh, that's quite a question. The journey has been very interesting because I remember when I started, obviously as an intern, then I graduated to becoming a teacher. And not too long after that, I can remember an announcement that was made by Mr. Teron that I was now going to be the head of department for geography. And then from there on, I became an assistant housemaster in Baines. And the housemaster role came, and the new role is about to get started. So it's been quite a journey. Lessons learned along the way is that you've got to be patient, you persevere, but keep your eyes on the goal. I think at some stage I was a little bit more confused about which road I wanted to follow within the school or the education space. You've got the academic route, or you can go the sport route, or you can go the pastoral route. So after a stint as a head of department, I felt that that wasn't working out for me. I knew what my strengths were. They were in about building relationships, etc. And I felt if I go the pastoral route, boarding route, that is where I could get a lot of success and satisfaction, as it were. I think lesson learned initially when we arrived. When I arrived at Michaelhouse, really one of the lessons that I learned was after being appointed the head of department for geography. For as long as I remember, so Mr. Kulus was the head of isiZulu, and then when I look around many schools, the head of departments in those cases were always guys that were heading Zulu department. I hadn't come across with anybody who had led a different department um, other than isiZulu. I'm talking about people of African nature, African culture, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I learned that okay, in the midst of everything else, if you just trust your instincts, it is possible. I was very, very nervous when I took over as the head of Department of Geography because it had not been done before, and but the experience from there taught me that you are just more than capable. And I went with it, ran with it, until I decided, no, let me change my path and go towards more pastoral care, which kind of suited me because just of my personality. I just felt um, I wanted to instill certain values within the boys of Michaelhouse. And yes, while I continue teaching, but I felt I'll add more value on the boarding side of and pastoral care side of the school. What can I learn? Once I became a housemaster, I realized that you've got to be a lot more empathetic and be more understanding because you realize that boys have a lot of issues that they're dealing with. You know, remember, it's a volatile age between 14 and 18. A lot is changing. Okay. And some of the boys had sort of social issues, family issues. And you realize that when a boy messes up in class, you needed to dig a little bit deeper as to what led to that. And I think that really made me see boys in a different light because I realized that they boys mean well. You know, there's no boy in Michaelhouse who goes out to make people's lives miserable. You know, they mean well. In some cases, they need just good guidance. You know, they need love and they need good guidance. And I think once I unlearned that you don't always have to be harsh, you can get so much more out of them. And really, the last 3 years for me has been the best time of my life as a teacher because as a housemaster, you really, really get to know these kids and you know their weak points, you know their strengths, you know. And I learned that boys are just as vulnerable as anyone else. And yeah, those are some of the things that I can share with you guys.
And so, Sibs, you mentioned the nervousness that you felt in the milestones that you've achieved, only to realize that you're actually more than capable. And the way I see it, every milestone has actually been that realization. And you have set the bar and you continue to set the bar. So, head of department, housemaster, and now deputy rector. Do you still feel the same level of nervousness, or do you now have the confidence that actually validates that you are more than capable? How does it make you feel, the new appointment?
I'd be lying if I said I feel very comfortable. I am somewhat nervous, but I've drawn a lot from the past experiences, you know, and I think on the weekend when I was announced, or that week when the message was sent out to the community, I received messages from so many people, and that really inspired me. I said, you know what, you have the support behind you. Just look forward and do what people have bestowed on you, because surely someone has done their due diligence and they believe you are the right person for the you are the right person for the job. And I felt a huge amount of relief from those messages. If anything, I was hugely inspired. And I mean, it was so good. I can remember I received messages from different people. I can remember there's an old man called John Cheshire, and he phoned me, and his son from the UK called me. I had Mandla Mashimane calling me. I had another boy, Alex Taylor is in America. I realized that I realized the magnitude of this. When I received those calls. However, as I said, I found inspiration in that, and I said, if I'm called to serve this great school of ours, let me play my part. Maybe one day the history books will read that I did my part and did it fairly well.
Well, you know what, Sibs?
Yes.
The one thing that I'm sure all of us are proud of more than anything is it's more than just the color, but the fact that you are
Yeah.
homegrown and Michaelhouse made you from cradle to grave. So it's really, really inspiring. I've got a couple of more questions that have come up on the chat. Apiwem Talane, he's got a question. It seems like he's an aspiring educator, but his question
Oh,
is,
yes.
as an educator at the highest level, being yourself, could you outline a
Apiwe?
path for
Oh,
junior
yes.
educators following in your footsteps?
Yeah. Can you just put it up, Teddy, on the screen so I can see the rest of the message? You seem to be cutting off.
As an educator at the highest level, could you outline a path for junior educators following in your footsteps?
Thank you. Right, I can read the message. Um, you can. Right. Apiwe, thank you so much for that message. If I recall, you were in Fairfield, if I recall correctly. You know what? I think the most important thing, you've got to have the passion for the job. There is no day where I wake up and feel like another day at Michaelhouse. For me, the fact that I come and interact with boys is very inspiring. And I think if you can be passionate about what you do, you will become a great deal of a teacher. Every child out there needs a champion, and teachers have that massive, massive role and an influential role to give hope to the kids that are before you, whether they're in grade one or in matric. Every child is looking for inspiration, and I think that is what we offer as teachers. And sometimes it's not so much about how intellectual you are as a teacher, just your being and the warmth that you create for the kids that are before you. I think it takes you far as a teacher, and I would strongly recommend that um, you are passionate about what you do, because it makes it that much more easier.
Thanks, Sibs. I think we've lost Teddy. Let's answer one of the other questions from the audience.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We've got Teddy back. Here we go.
Sorry, guys, what happened? Whose signal was bad? I switched networks again. Apologies if it was on my side. We can go back to Lauren.
Take it away, Teddy. Over to you, Teddy.
Lauren, you're either? Yeah? We can go back.
Yeah, you can carry on.
Lauren? Are you there, Lauren? Lauren?
Yeah. Teddy, I can hear you though.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Can
Yeah.
you see my camera? Can you see me moving?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Did you get the question?
The last question I answered was, I think it was a Piwim Talane. So I answered that question. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So I have another question from Makashe Ngwepe.
Yeah.
He asked, how can we honor teachers
Oh
who
my
have had an
goodness.
impact? So basically, this question is directed at you, teachers that have had an impact on our lives and shaped our stories. So he's currently living in the US, and he remembers your stories on London, and as a Black was inspired to study, live, and work overseas.
Sure. So the question is, how can we honor teachers who have impacted our lives? You know what? I think as teachers, Makashe, we want what is best for you guys. And if we can inspire you guys to be the best version of yourselves, that is a gift that we can get from you. And I think teachers don't look for much more than you guys being the best version of yourselves, and just a thank you note at the end of your time here. There's a letter that I kept, and I told this boy. In fact, I've received a lot of letters. One of the most profound letters I received was from a founder's boy who left, if I recall, maybe 2017 or 2018. I can't remember exactly. It was Tom Quinn. We had a lot of banter in my geography class about Man United and Chelsea. And he took time, he took a simple exam pad note and wrote me a thank you letter. I will never lose that letter, because when things go a little bit, when the road is going a bit tough, I always go read that letter that Tom wrote me. It gives us as teachers the essence of the role that we play. And guys, really, teachers don't look much more than you being successful at what you inspire to become. A simple thank you at the end of your time in a school like ours goes a long way. And I've received numerous of those, and I always say they are the best gift that I can get as a teacher. So Makashe, if there's anything, we inspire you guys to become the best versions of yourselves. And I look at you now, you live in the US, the sky's the limit. It is such a heartwarming feeling. And I cannot ask for anything more than that.
Thanks, Sibs. I think we truly honor and
Makashe,
value the.
That's still not a good house, though.
I've got a comment, actually, a funny one, saying that Mr. Rogers, we should call Mr. Rogers to sort out the IT issues. And I remember Mr. Rogers, I think he was our computer teacher in the early 2000s, and he had a white ponytail.
I remember
That's what I remember of Mr. Rogers. But Anthony Hewitt, other than the IT bandwidth, he's got a question. He wants to ask, what 3 things can we change from the top that would make Michaelhouse even better in 5 years' time?
Sheesh. I think with the current generation, if we can get our Wi-Fi to work efficiently, it will make the current generation of boys at Michaelhouse very, very happy, Anthony. And yeah, I mean, I'm always saying that in jest. What can we change? I think we must just continue providing the service that Michaelhouse is known for, and that is to provide the best education for the youngsters that come here. Really, and I'm saying that with absolute conviction that if we can just put ourselves and position ourselves correctly and say we want to offer the best education possible for the boys that come to our school, would have done a great deal. And the other thing that I would say, obviously, it's important that every boy who comes to our school get the sense of I belong here, So if we can get that right as well, the sense of belonging for every boy, regardless whether a boy plays the guitar or is a rugby player or is a hockey player, top academic, they must feel the sense of belonging in our school. And we must continue providing an environment which cares for every child in our school.
Thanks, Sibs. I've got another couple of questions I'd like to cover.
Yes.
It's from Anthony. What do you expect? So another couple of questions. One from Sibs Ncamani, whom I'm sure you remember very well.
Oh, yes.
He's got a question about leadership. And
yes,
what are the most important ingredients developing men to lead in the 21st century?
Let me just. I think it's important that we continue to cultivate a sense of how do I put this? It's important that the boys that we produce at Michaelhouse, when they go into the bigger world, they can fit into the society. So it is important that we instill the culture of integrity. It is important that we instill humility. All the values that Michaelhouse is known for, because those don't change, and they haven't changed in the last 100 years. And they are the values that I believe are very, very important in producing leaders, men of integrity, immense integrity, men of humility. All of those things, I think, for me, they add so much value in ensuring that the quality of a boy that we produce is able to go into the world, whether in South Africa or beyond the borders of South Africa, and they can fit in. And I can tell you, those values are always, in my view, top of the list. I hope I've answered you correctly, Mr. Domo.
A follow-up question from Gisana. Firstly, he says, we're extremely proud of your appointment. And and I think all of us are. Truly something historic. And what would your legacy be in this new role? So as Deputy Rector of Michaelhouse over the next couple of years, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
Sure. That's a very good question. Gisana, good evening to you, sir. I think for me, the role that I've undertaken mainly involves making sure that the gap or the void between the top management of the school and the boys is narrowed. I think that we live in times now where boys are allowed to voice their opinions, and they should do that freely. When I went to school, when you saw a teacher coming your direction, you ran away, because that was just it. You did not want to. The only time you could see a teacher was in a classroom, and that's it. I think I would like to make sure that the relationship that the boys have, especially with the management of the school, is healthy, and the boys can actually feel like they can voice their opinions, their concerns without fear, and I've basically said to myself, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in different cop shops in the school where I can go and spend time with the matrics, with the A block boys, and say, okay, guys, let's sit around the table. What are some of the issues that you're worried about? How can we best resolve them? And I think I would like to make sure that the boys feel like their voice matter. And if I can leave a legacy, it would be that. And obviously, that alone, for me, will lead to many other spheres of the school where I'd like to eliminate a lot of dark practices that happens in the school. Obviously, the boys have a certain perception about certain practices in the school, and us as staff have a certain perception. It's about getting those two perceptions to go in the right direction. And I think sometimes the boys find it difficult when we change certain rules. The very common comment is always, the school is getting soft, and so boys forget that this is the 21st century. Things have changed, and really in our offering, I think it's going to be important that we remain transparent with the boys in terms of what can be done and what can't be done, with the view of giving them a voice to share their thoughts and ultimately enjoy their experience while here. They mustn't leave the school with a lot of regret and feel like the school never listened to us. If I could be anything, I would like to listen to the boys and try and channel their concerns correctly with the rector and to try and meet them at least halfway. So that is probably the legacy that I'd like to leave, and really is to make sure that every boy that is here, I have some sort of a positive influence in their life while they're here.
That's a great response. And in fact, related to it, there's a question from your mentor. So Mr. Kalusa is on the line. I wish this was a Teams call where I could just ask him to put up his video so you could see his face. But his question is, what is your main challenge in this new role?
I don't know if I can do justice in answering that question. I suppose I think the main challenge is just making sure that Michaelhouse remains relevant. We continue providing the same education of the highest caliber we can offer. I think if we can do that during my time, because this is how I see Michaelhouse. Michaelhouse, we are all like, if you are given a position of authority, it's like being a captain of the ship. But this ship never actually goes in docks. It just goes. And during your time that you are given to be the captain of a part of the ship, is that you need to do it in a steady way, in a convincing way, and you do your part and you do it well and hand over a better Michaelhouse. So I think the biggest challenge would be maintaining the highest standards of the school and make sure that I leave the school in a slightly better place than I found it, at least in my position. If I can influence that, I'd be very satisfied.
Mr. Shandu has a question, actually an interesting one. And that
Which
is,
Shandu?
You've been a Sanda.
Oh my God.
So he asked, what lessons have you learned from the boys?
Sure. What lessons have I learned from the boys? I think boys, Sanda, thank you so much, Baba. In fact, I saw he was here. He was visiting school about some 3 or 4 weeks ago. I took him around the school. It was an absolute pleasure to do that for him. In fact, before I answer his question, I can tell you something about Sanda himself. Sanda and his group of boys were my first A block class that I taught. They were my first ever class that I took through A block. And that's when I realized, this thing is possible. In fact, that class, I can go through some names. Riff Naked was in that class. Emmanuel Diablo was in that class. Slab was in that class. Chase Leroux, Clinton Panther, Mayhew. I can go on and on. So I have vivid memories about my first ever matric class. Whatever I learned from the boys, that's a great question. I think boys inspire me every day. You never know what you're going to get from the boys when you go into class. So I think the best way I can answer your question, Shandu, is that boys have inspired me to do even better, to become the best teacher that I can be.
Wow. And on that note, Sibs, now that you've named all the boys from that particular class, I do want to actually acknowledge that there's a lot of boys that have joined this call. I'm going to go through them very quickly before I answer my last question, just to fascinate you as to the extent of support that you've had over the last hour. But Mr. Kulusa, as you know, he joined the call, by Tebang Mapetla, OG Hector and Gisana, who asked the question, Mahashe and Ngwepe, who also asked the questions.
Yes.
Manga was on the call. Kuche Kumalo.
Oh, wow.
Mary Witherspoon was online, always a great support. Diseto Tiki, you'd remember him. Deputy head.
Oh, yes, brains man. Oh, it was bright. Sheesh. I want some of his brains.
Otetleng Mokhatle, baby Mokhatle.
Oh, wow.
And Raymond, obviously, you know, he's a prominent member of our community, and many others. Ntolo was also on the line, and I'm just going through a few other names here. Apiwe, he asked the question. Ngaibo Zungu, Pito, Sizo, Dion Gomo, who asked the question as well. And yeah, I mean, those are just some of the names that have actually commented, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more boys and all boys and extended members of our community that actually asked the question as well. So, and that they're watching online. But Sibs, thank you so much. And my final question is, if you had to look in the mirror today and see a younger version of yourself starting their career, what would you advise yourself? Would you do anything differently than you did back when you started your career?
Wow. Yeah, that's a very good question. If I were to look back, I don't think I would change much. If anything, in fact, I probably won't change a lot. I would hope that at least I would have gone through a school where they played a multitude of sports. We only had soccer at our school, and we played a little bit of I don't want to call it rugby, but there was some sort of thing that was called rugby. They were playing it. I did not go. It looked very dangerous. But what I'm saying is that really, I could not have changed. I couldn't change much out of what I was 20 years ago. And I would still say, Sibs, go for it. Do the best that you can, and you will reap the rewards. And I think even though obviously whenever you take a new role and you step into a new environment, you always have that feeling of being apprehensive. I think if you just tell yourself that I'm going to do it, it really, that's what it is. If you believe in yourself, there's always a support structure. And I think I was always surrounded by people who wanted to see me succeed. And I tapped into that wisdom all the time. And I would continue doing that. I do it today. I mean, I look at Mr. Clark and I feel like I've got a lot to learn from him. And I've learned a great deal from Mr. Lang. And I tell you what, the boys, they provide us with the best education, because those are the people that we interact with all the time. And boy, oh boy, every day they throw a different curveball to you. And all you can be is to provide the best suitable solution to any curveball that gets thrown in your direction. And I don't see myself doing any other job other than staying in education. If I can continue to influence the young men and women in some capacity, I think I'll rest well one day.
Wow. Sibs, I wish we had longer. I wish we had another hour. We could have easily gone on till well past 8 o'clock, but we provisioned to have these sessions for an hour. But it's been great. It's been really inspiring to hear your story. You and I go back 20 years. I was there from when you started at Michaelhouse, and you've barely changed. And it's really been amazing seeing your progression, especially given where you've come from, moving from the village to a fancier village called Bulgarian.
Indeed.
but that transition is just so inspiring, and you've really inspired the broader community in believing that we can do it and that we are more than capable. So every milestone that you have reached in your career, certainly over the last 20 years, has been an inspiration for us to actually realize and acknowledge that we are more than capable. We're more than capable, and we're capable more than people think we are. So thank you very much for inspiring us. Thank you for continuing to set the bar high. You are going to grow ever more successful at Michaelhouse. I'm sure all the old boys and the broader community want to continue engaging with you. So if by any chance, I don't know if you're a member of OM Plus already, but perhaps we could use that as a platform. People want to follow your story. So for us, or for some people that are overseas and are unable to connect with you, I think OM Plus is really a great platform where we can connect and continue to follow you. I will be down at Michaelhouse in 2 weeks. I've been invited by Chris Mayer to share something at chapel. So thank you for hosting me for dinner. Thank you for hosting me for dinner in advance.
I'll do that with pleasure.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Teddy.
And then thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. The next session is in a couple of weeks to come. And to the broader All Boys and community, we're going to be having Wayne, Murray Witherspoon, as well as Sean, really take us through the vision for OM Plus and where they see it going. But Sibs, once again, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so if I could just say in closing, man, guys, I'm honored to be invited in your space. We obviously know that Michaelhouse All Boys Club is a very special group of people. And for me to even be invited into this space is an absolute honor. And thank you so much for doing that. If I can just say to the guys, during your time here at Michaelhouse, you were inspired. You inspired. Please continue to inspire someone else in your sphere of influence. There's somebody who's looking up to you. Just always reach out to them, be an inspiration. You'll be amazed what that does for various individuals that are looking up to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sibs. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a lovely evening.
Okay. Thank you, guys. You take care.